The hate on Trey Lance just won't die. And who are the most important players to the 49ers' success this season? Find out next, plus a hell of a lot more. Let's go. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And tonight, we are back. We missed last Tuesday, but my guy, So Real Suneil, all the way to the top button, Kyle Shanahan style. What's up, my man? How are you?
Top button gang, man. I actually do this a lot in my personal life, to the point where people like call me out on it. And I'm just like, you don't know about TBG, baby. I was doing it before Shanahan. Shanahan probably got it from me. And, much props to him. I like it.
Completely fair. Well, a couple shout outs before we jump into this thing. First of all, it's been 2 weeks now. How you been? I feel like I don't even talk to you anymore. I miss you so much.
I love it, even though we talk every single day. But yeah, I mean, it's been cool. I mean, I've been watching a lot more basketball. Most of my sports are obviously football and MMA are like my two favorite sports. Both of those have kind of been, a little bit down. So caught up on some Netflix shows that I needed to catch up on. But OTAs are back, baby. So getting excited about this week. And, obviously it's all love when I'm back on this channel.
Absolutely, man. Well, yeah, OTAs are back tomorrow and we have a lot to talk about. But before we get there, two things I want to shout out. First of all, Bryant, thank you so much for becoming a new member. Appreciate the hell out of you. And pinned to the top of the chat is Suneil's channel. So I know how you guys like to do. It's a little hard to go click a couple extra buttons. So I put it right there in the chat. All you got to do is hit click on the page and subscribe. And then you're subscribed to Suneil's channel as well, so you don't miss out on any of his content. But let's jump right into it. First topic at hand is actually not a Niner topic, but it is Niner related, and it's Aaron Donald. So if you remember Aaron Donald, there was talk that he was going to retire after the season, after winning a Super Bowl. He said it actually on the field during the celebration. Somebody had caught that on camera, but then things cooled off. He said he was going to come back. He wanted to go back to back. But now it seems like those talks are ramping up again. He wants a new contract. He hasn't gotten that yet. And it doesn't sound like there's any ill will, but he's very content, as he put it, with his career if he does not get the contract that he deserves. So first of all, what do you think the chances are? Well, we'll go 1 to 10, 10 being the most likely, 1 being the least likely. What are the chances that Aaron Donald retires? And then secondly, what is the impact on this division and really the NFC as a whole if he does retire?
So I really think it's like a 2, the chances that he actually does retire. I mean, he just signed he signed with Donda Sports. So I don't think you make a flip as far as your agency and all that kind of stuff, unless you continue to feel like you're going to, by the way, thank you, Big City Man. Unless you think that you're going to continue to play. Now, let's say I'm wrong and he actually does retire. Well, the 49ers offensive line just immediately got better, right? Because one of the biggest threats out there is no longer going to be there. You don't have to play Aaron Donald twice, even though Brunskill, seems to have his way with him. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge impact, right? The Rams are already a team that I think doesn't have as much talent as they did last season. And then if they lose their best player on top of that, now you're talking about, that's a player that's not easily replaced, if possible to replace, right? So I didn't see any downward swing as far as the play from Aaron Donald. It's not like he can't still compete. He isn't still out there the biggest threat on that defense. So I imagine him coming back. I don't think the Rams are dumb enough to let him walk. Like, you just give him a blank check and, let him figure out what the numbers are, bring him back, because I don't know how competitive that defense is without Aaron Donald.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. First of all, if Aaron Donald does retire, we're popping bottles over here in 49er land because we know exactly what that means. You can just sign, seal, deliver. That division is ours, no question about it. To where now there's some pause, and it really could go back and forth. But with no Aaron Donald, that is a completely different defense. I have no concerns whatsoever about the Rams, just to be frank with you. But that being said, I'm going to go a little bit higher than you just because this is the second time that we've heard this now. I do think that the Rams come around and they eventually work out a contract. But now that he's talked about it twice and they are getting closer to the season and he's willing to bring it up again, tells me that there's a possibility. So not much higher. You said a 2, I'll go with a 4, but certainly less likely than likely that he does retire. But man, oh man, if for any reason something goes astray over there, like I said, we're popping bottles over here because that would be huge for the 49ers. Now, I don't have this on the ticker, but I think we should bring it up because we've talked a lot about who are the teams that the 49ers are competing with when it comes to the NFC. The Rams are a team that we just talked about an interior defensive lineman. Well, I don't know if you know this, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have signed an interior defensive lineman of their own, a pretty damn good one, in Akiem Hicks, who the former Bear, a lot of turmoil there. They talked about trading him last season. It just never happened. He was still out there on the market. They decided to go with Hicks over Sue. What do you think about that? Because to me, I'll let you know, my initial reaction was like, damn, like this team was already, in my opinion, the best. That's a really, really good player. And I look at the way that the 49ers match up. That team's already tough to run on. It just got that much tougher. I'm not a big fan of this from a 49ers standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make the Bucks worse. Let's put it that way. Like, it clearly is, you adding talent to a team that already has a lot of talent there. Does this make them insurmountable? I don't think so. I think that still they're a team that the 49ers match up with very well, especially if Trey Lance comes into his own the way that we think he's going to come into. But, I think Hicks still has some tread on the tires. That I do believe the defensive line for the Bucks is a little bit older. They have a lot of guys there that have been in the league for some time. So that is obviously some talent there. I just don't know how much depth they have past the names that we know of. I could be wrong. I haven't done too much research into their defensive line. I just think the 49ers depth and talent that they have at the top and, all the way down to the 11th man on that defensive line, I would still put up our defensive line against any other team's defensive line. So.
Okay, I agree with you. I would put our defensive line up against any other defensive line, but I just look at it from, it's our offense going against their defense. Vita Vea is already in the middle. You add Hicks. I don't know how we run against that team, and that's a big, big deal. So to me, it may not matter. They may not even end up playing in the playoffs. Funnier things happen. Teams match up weird, whatever, but that's a team that, man, they talk about going all in. Tampa Bay's gone all in, right? And that's something that 49er fans have been a little bit frustrated with. Again, they still have time to do so, but right now Tampa Bay is all in on this year, and that's another big, big signing that's going way under the radar, I think, for a lot of people. This is a great comment. 49ers Throwback, appreciate you with the $5 comment. He says, hey, Jesse and Suneil, I just want to say thank you guys for your content. We thank you for tuning in. Without you, this doesn't even matter, so appreciate the hell out of you. Also, you said earlier that you aren't concerned with the Packers being above the Niners. Yeah, this goes back to a Twitter comment, so I'll just throw it in here real quick. Twice now, we've seen some power rankings come out. The Packers have been above the Niners pretty significantly in both of those by 3 to 5 spots, depending on the power rankings that are put out. Again, today it happened. I think they had the Packers number 5. They had the 49ers at 9. I think the Packers are super overrated. That's just my personal opinion. Now, that being said, I think some of the most overrated teams or overrated players throughout history are still very good. I think the Packers deserve to be in the top 10, but top 5 team after losing Devontae Adams and one of the Smith brothers, I don't know about you, but I'm just not concerned about that team. I'll put it this way. The Packers without Devontae Adams are not going to go score in 38 seconds or 37 seconds or whatever it is. I'm not too worried about that happening if that situation were to arise again. What about you? Do you think the Packers are being a bit overrated? Are they right where they should be? Top 5 team in the power rankings preseason. What are your thoughts on the Packers?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They are getting a lot of guys that were not able to make as big of an impact, that were top premium guys like Bakhtiari, Jair Alexander, and there's somebody else too, I think, that they're getting back. I mean, those power rankings, to be honest, Jesse, I don't buy into them too much. I mean, it's just the overvalue at the quarterback position, right? So you have a really good quarterback, you're going to be ranked pretty high in there, and you can look at the top 10 there. I think the reason why the 49ers aren't getting as much respect in the power rankings is because it's not sexy to talk about the team that's most deep and has, talent at all different positions. And then you just have the question mark with Trey Lance at quarterback. So for me, I think that's the reason why the 49ers, aren't as high on power rankings as maybe we put them when we do our power rankings. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you ranked in the offseason, right? It all matters how you play and what ends up happening there. I'd be interested to see where the 49ers were ranked preseason last year, and then they ended up, top 4. So we'll see how it ends up this season.
Yeah, that's just it to me is everybody talks about the quarterback position, and we're going to get to that here in a minute, but everybody talks about the quarterback position and how it's an unknown. All right, that's totally fair, but what we do know is what Jimmy Garoppolo is. And Jimmy Garoppolo is not a very good quarterback. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. He's starter level, right? But he's not a good starting level quarterback. So let's assume the worst for Trey Lance, that he's not a good starting level quarterback. Well, this team was still a Final Four team with that in place. So if Trey Lance is even slightly better than that, this team can make a deep run. So I just don't understand it. Again, preseason power rankings are a lot about the quarterback, like you said. But to me, they should also be based off of what paper is. And paper is telling us the 49ers are a better team, and Green Bay is taking a step back. The 49ers already beat Green Bay in the playoffs. I just don't understand how they can have Green Bay above the 49ers. I think if these two teams meet in the playoffs again, both teams are healthy, I would take the 49ers, no hesitation. And again, Aaron Rodgers is great. One of the all-time great quarterbacks. Love watching Aaron Rodgers play. But with Devontae Adams now in Las Vegas, I'm not concerned about that team. I'm really not. Like, that firepower is no longer there to me. Sure, Christian Watson can be a really good receiver when it's all said and done, but usually year one receivers don't have Jamar Chase type seasons, right? Randy Moss type seasons. That's not normal. He'll probably be around an 800-yard guy, and that's cool, but he's not Devontae Adams. And losing Devontae Adams, to me, makes that offense a lot more containable, especially now that the secondary and the pass rush has gotten better for the 49ers. So to me, I think the Packers are a bit overrated. Still a good team, still should be in the top 10, but a little bit overrated losing players of that caliber. But that's just me. Let me get back to the comment here before I give it some love. Appreciate you again, 49ers throwback. And if you are new to the show, you haven't grown accustomed to, but we always show love when somebody gives money, and here's how we do it. Are you ready to dance?
Dancing.
You're gonna sing?
Dancing. I was dancing. Okay. No, but I did want to shout out, because I think 49ers throwback deserves a lot of praise, man. This guy supports every single 49ers content
sure.
creator,
Yes.
Retweeting our videos on Twitter, and
Yes.
constantly, like, I remember talking to you early on, like I was like, who's this 49ers throwback, man? It made me feel so special that he's retweeting my videos and stuff like that. So a lot of praise to you, my man. I appreciate it, and you do a lot to keep the community together, and it does mean a lot to us content creators what you do as far as retweeting our videos and all that. So appreciate you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super, super chill. I assume him, but could be a her. Either way,
No, it's
appreciate the
him.
hell out of you.
I
Is it
think
him? Okay.
I forget. I think his name is Fernando, but I might be wrong. But
Okay.
sorry.
Are
If
you in on, like, I don't really get into like people's profiles and stuff on Twitter or any of that stuff, but good catch by you. Yeah, thank you. If Fernando, whatever, I appreciate the hell out of you, 49ers throwback. You do. You certainly show us a lot of love. All right. Let's jump into some kind of new news when it comes to Jimmy Garoppolo. Last week, we heard that the 49ers are still trying to trade Jimmy. No surprise there. I think anybody who's been listening for a while would know that Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to be the starter for the San Francisco 49ers, barring some major injury, right? Knock on wood. But this is new news. Albert Breer came out and said that Jimmy G and his team have permission to work out a contract with some of the teams that they are in talks with. That to me is something worth noting. Now, it's not as awesome as saying that they have permission to seek a trade, right? But there are probably very few teams that are left, if any. And so being able to work out a contract pre-trade and giving them that permission, to me, is just another step towards exactly what we already thought. And Jimmy G, hopefully not being on this roster too much longer. What were your thoughts when you heard this report?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's another feather in the cap of everybody who saw the writing on the wall. You were obviously one of the first people there on the back. I was somebody who was pretty adamant that Jimmy was going to not be here on this team. I think the only other aspect that this shows me, Jesse, is even if a trade doesn't happen, they're going to cut him, right? And giving him the opportunity to discuss contracts kind of is just like, hopefully either they're going to cut him, or I think they're just going to trade him for cheap. You know what I mean? It kind of, all the leverage games are gone. I think the 49ers know, like, look, we don't have this leverage anymore. Maybe they get a fourth, fifth, something out of it. But it just seems like he's just going to be gone. And I actually like this from the 49ers because I know a lot of people hate on Jimmy, but I have a lot of respect for what he's done for this franchise. He definitely brought a level of poise and honor, I think, to the position. I think he's handled himself very well in a very tumultuous situation. He clearly wins a lot more than he loses when he's on this team. And this team was garbage before he came into it, right? And he's helped be a part of a winning culture. And I have a lot of respect for him. So I think this is actually a good thing for the 49ers to give him the opportunity to go out there and negotiate with some teams and hopefully put him in a situation where he could contend for a starting job, because I know that's important to him. And I think this shows once again that the 49ers do care about their players. And I think this is going to bode well for them in free agency and, in trade aspects later on in the future.
Yeah, I think all these things are good. And I think that's another big reason why I don't think Jimmy's going to be here, is because I really think that the 49ers want to do right by their players. I mean, obviously they've got to put the franchise first, but I think if I'm Jimmy G, and maybe I'm off base on this one, but I'm just going what I would think if I was Jimmy Garoppolo. If I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm thinking, hey, if I'm going to be a backup for a team, it certainly isn't going to be for a team that I feel like I brought out of the gutter, right? It's not going to be for a team that I got to a Super Bowl or was a big part in that. That's a little bit, I don't know. It's just a hit to your ego. It would be to mine. So I think Jimmy Garoppolo is fine competing or being a backup somewhere else. I just don't think the 49ers are that team. I think that would be a little bit hard to look at those men in the eyes and say, listen, I know I was a big part in us going to 2 NFC championship games and turning this franchise around, but now I'm the backup quarterback and there's a new captain in town. I'm not with it. So I think doing right by Jimmy eventually does probably lead to him being cut. And then, yeah, he'll have to work out a new contract because he's not going to have one in place. He won't be traded. So, yeah, to me, this is great news. Again, another step in that direction. But I think for me, I was very, very nervous about them hanging on to Jimmy G, and it's still there. But this is one of those things that kind of tells me, all right, maybe they're ready to move on fully, even if it does mean cutting Jimmy, which is the right move to make if you cannot trade him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do think when Jimmy leaves, there's still some question marks there as far as quarterback room, but I think that he needs to be given the opportunity to go out there and do what's best for him. And, he seemed to be miserable with the 49ers. And that's when he was the starter with the way that this front office treated him. Him as a backup dealing with that is just not a good situation for anybody involved. So, kudos to him. I wish him the best of luck with wherever he ends up. I think it's either going to be Carolina or Houston. But, I wish him the best.
Yeah, somebody said Giants or Steelers. I just don't see the Steelers whatsoever. If they wanted Jimmy G, I think they would have made that move already. They drafted a quarterback in the first round. They went and got Trubisky. I personally don't see that. Giants, maybe I could see, but again, Dayball's their head coach. He likes to throw the ball downfield. He likes to throw the ball way too much, period. But yeah, so to me, I don't see those two teams, but maybe you're right. I mean, heck, I would love for more than just Carolina to be involved in this thing. We'll see what ends up happening.
You don't think Houston's an option?
I really don't. Why? Like, the team's not winning, right? Like, the team's not even close to winning anything. And you've got a quarterback who was a rookie last year that played pretty damn good. I mean, Davis Mills was arguably, outside of Mac Jones, the best of all the rookie quarterbacks last year. Why wouldn't you try to build on that? And again, you're not trying to win anything this year. It's not like first of all, they have a new coach that is not on the verge of being fired. So it doesn't make sense to go there. And you've got a quarterback who you're trying to develop. I don't see the Texans. I really don't.
Yeah, I think so. I think, Lovie Smith, Rohan is the one who actually put me onto this. Like, the reality is, you look at what happened to Coley last season with Houston. He actually won more games than the previous season by double and still got fired. So It's really tough in this league, like, to keep your job unless you're consistently winning. And having a guy like Jimmy there, he's already been a great mentor. He doesn't create a lot of problems in the locker room. And on top of that, he'll bring some playoff caliber level player. I think it's just, that would be good as a mentor role for a guy like Davis Mills. And, if he beats him out, then he beats him out.
Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair. Kenyon says winning is a team stat. Absolutely, it is. In fact, I think winning is more attributed to Debo and Bosa showing up than it is Jimmy G. But, it is what it is. Now, I do think this is an outside team, and Steve Supremo brings up a really good option, the Browns. If they're able to move on from Baker Mayfield and Deshaun gets suspended, that's a team that the coaches are certainly feeling a little bit of heat over there. It's an offense that Jimmy's familiar with, coming from the Shanahan offense. I think that is an outside team that certainly could go for a Jimmy Garoppolo if Deshaun is suspended for a significant amount of time. And I don't know if you heard, but it sounds like there's a 23rd lawsuit that just came up today. So things aren't getting better on the Deshaun Watson front. I think there's a real possibility that they could need somebody. And
you have no faith in Jacoby Brissett?
I mean, come on, Jacoby Brissett. Let's go. And although, how funny would that be if their quarterbacks are Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett? Weren't they together in New England in the first place? I mean, there we go.
Full circle.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is the other part of it is I think either Jimmy has to be willing to restructure or the 49ers have to be willing to take on something. And for me, I'm not taking on any of that contract from the 49ers. I'm not doing it. Certainly not to get like a 4th or 5th round pick. It's just not worth it to me. So, Eric says Suneil spitting fire must have ate some acorns to power up. What?
You don't remember?
Yeah, I remember. Golly, this guy. All right. Okay, so the hate continues to go at Trey Lance. What is going on? Emmanuel Acho, who, by the way, has said some things throughout the offseason, a little bit overshadowed by his co-host that seems to be a little bit louder when it comes to this. But he called Trey Lance one play Trey, said he ain't it. Then Cowherd came out and said that he hasn't heard enough, or excuse me, he's heard too much about Trey Lance. Whatever that means, it seems like the 49ers are trying to force the narrative upon people. And when he was looking at guys like Mahomes, you didn't hear much about him. You didn't have to force it out of him. Players and people were just willing to talk good about him. I don't know, man. This whole thing continues to build steam. If you haven't seen it, I made a post here on the channel in the community tab showing Trey Lance's throwing motion compared to what the training camp looked like last year. So I took a throw where he was throwing to his right, broke it down in 2 steps, and then did the same thing for him in this year's OTAs. The throwing mechanics are much more on point. And this is everything all the way through. His torso's more aligned. His throwing motion isn't as elongated. His feet, his base, everything looks way better. Now, that is not gospel. It doesn't mean that he won't revert when the bullets start flying or any of that. But what it does show is he put on a lot of work in the offseason to refine that throwing motion. And I think that that is something that, if he has gotten that figured out, really can help him a ton going forward. But overall, the hate does not stop. Let's take comment by comment. Let's go Emmanuel Acho. One play Trey. This guy ain't it. What were your thoughts initially when you heard this?
Yeah, so I know you said let's take it comment by comment, but I did a video yesterday.
Listen, it's your world. I'm just living in it. Do whatever you want.
I did a video yesterday, and I just kind of want to crystallize this for people as far as why this hate is there, right? So I talked about why it's hate, and we're using the word hate, and I agree with you. That is the right term to use, because there's one thing to like criticize and constructive criticism and going off of film and stats and things like that. But I do agree with you that it's hate, and I'm going to tell you why. So I broke it down into like 4 major points. One, obviously the clicks, right? So clicks gets money. Trey Lance is a hot topic. And so talking about Trey Lance, you get clicks up. There's a lot of content creators out here, even though these guys are on FS1 and ESPN and things like that, they still are in competition trying to get ad revenue, all that kind of stuff. So they need to keep those type topics up. So obviously clicks is number 1. Number 2, there's no rookie starters this year. So usually when there's a draft coming in, there's some bona fide rookies out there that are going to go in and start year 1 for the team. And last year there was 5 quarterbacks that were like that, right? Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey, Justin Fields, Mac Jones. This year there's 0, right? So they have to fill that void of where they would usually be talking about rookie quarterbacks. They don't have that opportunity now. Third point is the 49ers are a Super Bowl caliber roster, right? They made it to the NFC Championship last year. All the other teams that have Super Bowl aspirations, like the 49ers, don't have overturn at the quarterback position, right? They have already an incumbent that's playing. This is the first quarterback change for that, as far as Trey moving in there. And because he's an unknown, quote unquote, because we haven't seen him start full for a year, obviously there's gonna be talk about him. And the last point is, if it bleeds, it leads, man. Negativity is always gonna sell more than being positive. There's not a great story to just be like, Trey looks like he's everything that, nobody's selling off of that. You know what I mean? So it's easier to talk negative about that. So why those are the reasons why it's happening. Now, why I believe it's hate is the same thing. I mean, you kind of encapsulated it with what you did with Chris Sims. The stats are wrong, right? And even when Acho made his point, he talked about, if Shanahan liked Trey so much, why did he only start him 1 game? Well, he started him 2 games, bro. And so it's like if you're gonna use these stats and you're gonna use these facts and you're gonna try to like create this narrative, at least be correct in what you're stating, right? You did it with Chris Sims. Chris Sims talked about accuracy, and it's just he hasn't gotten any better. And then you just with one tweet listed the numbers from Houston, and then all of a sudden Chris Sims is like, well, you're right. I didn't think about that. And it's like you're trying to come to a point. Right. So you're utilizing the narrative, the facts to get to that point. And just it's like what do they call it? Like echo chambers. And you're only seeing it with blinders. Right. You're not taking in the full extent of things. That's why I call it hate. They need to be negative about Trey. So they're trying to fit it in. I've heard stories. He hasn't started. Jimmy's still on the thing. Like it's all this stuff. And it's like, man, that's what I thought about it. It's like, bro, you're playing yourself by making it sound like you have an educated stance when you're using stats that aren't even accurate.
I think it's interesting. First of all, you're right. I mean, to make a point, if you really believe it, you don't have to just flat out lie, right? That's what Sims did. I called him on it. He was super cool about it, by the way. I thought it was cool that they took that tweet, used it on their show, talked about it. And he was willing to backstep on that a little bit, right? He still has his opinion, and that's okay. But he was willing to listen to what I had to say. So I thought that was really cool of Sims. But Acho's is doing the same thing. He started 1 game. No, he started 2 games. You're just flat out lying at this point. From that point on, you lose all credibility. Now, Adrian brings up a good point. I think I know where he's going with this, but he says Coward is pretty accurate, not going to lie. As far as it seems a little bit forceful, the players are talking about Trey, but you have to remember 2 things. One, Acho was saying and Wiley was saying in the offseason that the reason that Trey's not going to be good, by the way, is because they're not hearing enough things about him. So then when finally you hear some things, it's like, well, now they're talking too much. They're trying too hard. Okay, but you have to also remember that 49er players are being asked about him constantly. So they're going to give you an opinion. It's not like they're just trying to go out of their way and say a bunch of things. Now, one thing I will say is Fred Warner on multiple occasions has gone out of his way to say some things about Trey Lance. Remember, it was him leading into, I think the week before or the few days before the Titans game, he had talked about Trey Lance looking really good in practice. He was not prompted. He was not asked. That came literally out of left field. Then we saw the practice film leak in the offseason, which, by the way, it was in that week leading up to the Titans game, that practice film. So it actually makes a lot of sense that he wasn't just fluffing. Like, that's exactly what he meant. And he was seeing things like that in practice that we were able to see later and go, oh my gosh, like, what the heck? This kid's incredible. So those things do line up. Now, we also, these same people that aren't hearing enough or are hearing too much or whatever are the same people last offseason, by the way, that say that the 49ers don't leak when they were wrong about Mac Jones. Well, I mean, we just put some assumptions and the 49ers don't leak. Okay, so the 49ers don't leak, but you're not hearing enough. Which one is it? Everything that they're saying does not make any sense. They're completely lying about stats. They are talking out of both sides of their mouths. I just can't wait until football starts and we get to see it. And by the way, let's say Trey doesn't look the best or he looks amazing. Really, it's not till the end of year 3 that you figure out what these players really are. I think it's I've talked a lot of trash about Tua, not because I don't like Tua, but really because I like to get under Dolphin fans. I like to get under their skin a little bit on Twitter. But reality is Tua deserves this year. This is year 3 for him. Let's see what happens. Josh Allen after year 1, and this is why I say it goes both ways. Baker Mayfield looked really good after year 1. This dude is almost out of the league in year 5. All right. And you've got Josh Allen, who didn't look good after year 1, and he's arguably the best quarterback in the league going into year 5. So, and we knew that after year 3, we pretty much knew what both these guys were. We knew that Baker was like, and we knew Allen was on his way to being a superstar. So after year 3, we will really know who these players are. I think it's unfair to make a judgment after 2 starts on anybody, it's just crazy to me how much people talk in absolutes. I tell you all the time, I am huge on Trey. I'm pro Trey. I've been that way since before the draft. I rattle off a million reasons why I think this kid's going to be really, really good. But if you ask me just genuinely, hey, do you think Trey's going to be great this year? Yeah, I do. But do I know for a fact? No, I don't. I mean, it's impossible to know until I see it on the field. Who knows? Nobody knows, right? We all have our assumptions one way or another, but people are talking in such absolutes negatively about this kid. It's really, really mind blowing to me. I've never seen anything like it. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I don't understand why Zach Wilson doesn't get it. I don't get why Fields doesn't get it. Lawrence doesn't get it. Why? Why Trey Lance out of all of them?
Because none of them are on a team that's actually competitive. And that's, I think, what the biggest thing that people have to understand is the 49ers are a team that a lot of people think could win the Super Bowl. And it's kind of like it's not normal to just go from a quarterback that took you to the NFC Championship game and then switch to a whole new starter, right? Without there being injuries and all this kind of stuff, which all those things are. But I mean, there are injuries as well. So, but I think I think I got to give credit to the spreadsheet, man. Lombardi actually had a really good take on this. And he said, be wary of people who are extreme on either side when it comes to Trey. Because the reality is the first chance that the 49ers have been able to see Trey throw the ball was last week in, OTAs. So from exit interviews to being able to, actually see him throw, that was the first time. So in that time frame, anybody that says the 49ers believe this or the 49ers believe that are lying, because there was no opportunity for the 49ers to see Trey on the field until OTAs last week. So all of this narrative that Shanahan feels a certain type of way or the team feels a certain type of way because of what they've seen and all this kind of stuff, they haven't seen anything. So Lombardi's basically like, anybody that's telling you the 49ers are enamored with Trey or that they are disappointed and fearful of what Trey can do, both of those narratives are wrong because they haven't seen enough of Trey this offseason to make a judgment either way. So I give credit for Lombardi for making that because I think it's actually true.
No, I agree with that take. I don't pay attention to Lombardi, but I think that is actually a really good take because during that period, nothing's happened, right? Nothing, there would be no change. And so saying that all of a sudden, oh, the Niners really, this offseason, they started to believe in Trey, or hey, they really think Trey's not it based off of what's going on in the offseason, that's impossible. It's a whole new coaching staff. None of that makes any sense. 49ers throwback says, Jesse, you posted a graph that talked about Trey Lance's throwing motion and quick release. Do you think it's gotten better? To be fair, I think the graph that you're talking about was posted by Brad, I believe. I posted pictures, side-by-side pictures of him last year in training camp versus this year in OTAs, and certainly it's gotten way better. I mean, the graph was confusing to me. I don't know what was going on there. I'm sure it had a lot of great things in it, and I think the overall consensus was Trey Lance has gotten a lot more efficient with his throwing motion, but for me, I just went off the visuals and the pictures. I snapped it when he was at full extension, and then I snapped it when he was coming forward. And if you look at it, the extension of his arm is significantly less. And here's the other thing that I noticed is his shoulders. So it was interesting because his front shoulder, now I think there's two things that can make you highly inaccurate. One, the way that your shoulder points, and then two, your head moving up and down. His head does not move near as much, I'll say that, but also his front shoulder. If you look at last year, his front arm was really low, but the shoulder was really high. So it's like his body and his shoulder did not mirror each other, right? But if you look this year, his front arm stays high and his shoulder stays pretty level. So to me, everything from the shoulders to the torso to the legs to the actual throwing motion, everything has made significant improvement. Now, again, is that the end all be all? No. Can he revert? Sure. But as of right now, just comparing to what he was at in training camp last year, completely different throwing motion, and it's a much more efficient, tight, and probably more accurate throwing motion than what he had this time last year. So I will just say that. Anything else that you want to add to this topic before we move on?
Yeah, and I think one thing that we got to take into consideration, he talked about it in his OTA interview, is the finger. The finger did affect his ability to throw the ball. It was weird for him to figure out, how to release or how to follow through without having the full extension of his index finger. So I think just having that be fully healthy is going to lead to more consistent accuracy from him. And yeah, I mean, the throwing motion is great, but we only saw it when there's nobody rushing him. And, we don't get to see what exactly he's going to do when pressure is there. So what is his natural instinct? So we just have to wait and see, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Swan Song has the whole chart graph figured out. This is why I'm not a fan of Lombardi. These charts and these graphs, just what is it, right? Like, I don't need all this crazy stuff. No, I'm just joking. Sure, I'm sure it sounds great, but visually is what I'm going by. That's what's most important to me. But I appreciate you having the answers to that. All right, let's talk about the 3 best players on the 49ers and the 3 most important players on the 49ers, because I think these two things are very, very different. So let's start with the 3 best players on the 49ers, and we may differ here on who these players are. I'll let you go first. You don't have to say top, 1 to 3, whatever. Just give me the 3 best players on the 49ers, in your opinion, headed into 2022.
So Trent Williams.
Okay.
Nick Bosa.
Okay.
Deebo Samuel.
Okay. Totally fair. No Kittle, no Warner. I mean, this talks to how talented the roster is now, right? No Kittle, no Warner. I agree with you, by the way. Those certainly are the 3 best players on this roster. But who are the 3 most important players on this roster, and why?
So you want to go with your 3 best first, or we
No, that's my 3. I agree with you. That is the 3
those
best players.
are your 3 as well?
I have no argument. Nope, no argument with that.
So the most important players going into next season are going to be Trey Lance. I think Brandon Ayuk and Charvarius Ward.
Oh, okay. Talk me through this. Trey Lance, I think, is pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
He's the quarterback. That's a pretty big deal. But why Ayuk and why Charvarius Ward?
So I think Ayuk is – so I think Deebo Samuel is a weapon, right? And I do think that, I put him as – I think he's the best player just based off of talent. But I think Brandon Ayuk is the more prototypical wide receiver. He's the guy that's going to be running the deep routes more than often compared to Deebo. And I do think because of the running back room that the 49ers do have, we don't have that Raheem Mostert's track speed. We don't have that Matt Breida track speed. So that the running game, I don't think is going to be able to give us those explosive plays as much as previous years, right? Last year, the explosive plays in the running game actually came when Deebo was back there. He obviously is stating that he doesn't going to want to play in that role as much, and I don't know if the 49ers want to play him there. So when I'm talking about explosive plays, that's going to be done through the air a lot more than it has in previous years. And that deep route is Brandon Ayuk. So I think that that's going to be a key component of the explosion in this 49ers offense, Trey Lance and Brandon Ayuk being on the same page.
Okay, I like it. And then Charvarius Ward?
Yeah, so Charvarius Ward to me is brought in to be the lockdown corner that we have. And I think that his ability to be able to play on an island, because let's be honest, the 49ers and the NFC and NFL in general is murderous road when it comes to the wide receiver position. Every team might not have a great quarterback, but they have 1 or 2 really great wide receivers on every team that the 49ers are going to play. I think that the 49ers want to be able to stay away from having to play zone and really play man-to-man. And I think it's going to be important for Charvarius Ward to lead that cornerback room and be able to lock down whoever wide receiver 1 is on that other team, to give the defensive line the opportunity to wreak havoc. Because one of the biggest ways that the opposing teams have been able to, negate the pass rush for the 49ers is get the ball out quick, because the 49ers didn't have the talent on the outside to play press and make that timing go awry. Now we do have that with Eman Mosley, with Charvarius Ward. We have guys that could play press man and confidently do so. So I think Charvarius Ward is going to go up against the wide receiver that is the safety valve for any quarterback, and his ability to lock down that guy, play without having penalties, and really take away that quick option is going to help out the whole defense overall.
Okay, I like it. You make a hell of a point, and I'm glad that we are very, very different in this 3, because we were spot on lockstep with the first 3. Trent Williams, Bosa, and Debo are the 3 best players on this team. I agree with you 100%. Now, we agree with Trey Lance being most important as well, one of the 3 most important. Obviously,
by far. Let me just put it. It's Trey Lance.
Yeah, it's Trey Lance and then everybody else. I agree. But I want to say this. To me, the other 2 most important players are Aaron Banks, because if Aaron Banks comes in and flops, then losing Tomlinson is a huge, huge deal. And now you're struggling to protect that young asset that we said is the most important player to this 49ers team's success. So Aaron Banks would be one guy. And number 2 would actually be, for a lot of the same reasons that you mentioned, that secondary, being able to play press man, go a lot of cover one deep, Jimmy Ward, for 2 reasons. 1, health, right? If he's not on the field, we kind of see how this defense can fall apart a little bit. And 2, because there just isn't the depth at the safety position overall from a talent standpoint. There's some players there, right? Like they've got Odom, they've got Hufanga, they've got Moore, all those guys, right, at the safety position. But none of those guys, in my opinion, are bona fide starters. So you've got one bona fide starter at the safety position, not depth behind him from a bona fide starter standpoint. And the moment that Ward goes down, or if he were to lose a step for any reason or what have you, I think going press man cover one is almost impossible to do, because you don't have that guy over the top that can roam a little bit and help take away some of the mistakes that may be made in a press corner situation. So for me, those are the 3 most important. I love your 3. I think we have a lot of the same reasons as to why we chose our 3. We just went with completely different directions. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I can't argue with what you stated. I mean, it's total facts. Like, Aaron Banks needs to play well. Jimmy Ward is one of my favorite 49ers, and I think that, you know, he brings a lot to it. I mean, I guess the only reason why I picked the players that I picked over maybe the guys that you picked, I know Jimmy Ward's been in and out of the lineup before, and the 49ers have been able to patch it up very well. And I just think before, Jimmy Ward was more important because we had such weakness at corner. I don't think the corner is a weakness anymore. I think it's an actual strength. So that roaming position was very important when guys were getting burnt and beat and all that kind of stuff. I don't think we have corners that we're worried about getting beat as often as some of the corners before. So I still think Jimmy Ward is extremely important. I want him there versus not wanting him there. I don't even want to risk having to play somebody other than Jimmy Ward. And obviously, Aaron, the reason why I didn't say Aaron Banks is I assume Alex Mack is coming back. That's just my assumption. And when you're in between Alex Mack and Trent Williams, I think anybody's going to look fine just because of how good those guys are. So that's probably, I mean, not saying that he's not important. That's where my thought process was.
Yeah, that's totally fair. You're wrong, but that's fair. So Swan Song says, we have a stacked team. This question varies. Yeah, and I saw it in the chat. You guys were throwing out a bunch of names, not only for the players that are the best on this team, but the players that are the most important. And I agree with everybody. I mean, there is a case to be made for sure for a lot of these players. And I think we'll be able to get to a couple of them here in just a second. But let me show Swan Song some love for coming through with the super chat real quick here. Hold up. Computers, they're tough to learn how to use. Let me show you. Don't do that. You're going to 50 in a school zone, Suneil. You need to slow down. Gammon, what's up, Gammon? How you doing, man? Appreciate you. You're another one that shows mad love to everybody. Appreciate the hell out of you. He's a lot of fun. It's been a while since Crocs had his morning shows, but Gammon likes to poke at me a little bit, make a little fun of me out over there. So appreciate you, man. He says, Suneil and Jessie, what does Mike McGlinchey need to do for the 49ers to offer him a second contract? This is a great question, by the way, because obviously this year is fully guaranteed. It's season 5. And this is interesting. The 49ers tend to have these players that do this, by the way, that are, you're kind of on the fence about. And then when it's breakout season, they come to play, right? And it makes it really hard not to sign these guys. And so you've got one of these guys in Mike McGlinchey that if he comes to play, maybe they look at re-signing him. For you, what do you think the 49ers need to see from Mike McGlinchey to offer him a second contract?
So I'm going to answer it in a different way. I don't know if it's how much they need to see from Mike McGlinchey or how much they need to see from Spencer Buford. Because I think that they brought in Buford to be the heir apparent to McGlinchey. And this seems like a little bit of a Laken Tomlinson, Aaron Banks type situation where they might want to go younger and cheaper. And it kind of depends on what that number is going to be from McGlinchey, because if McGlinchey comes out, plays well, all that kind of stuff, obviously, they're going to want to bring him back. But do they have to overpay for him like Laken Tom, like Jets did for Laken, right? I don't know I think they have a number. If McGlinchey gets that number somewhere else, they'll be fine with letting him walk as long as Spencer Buford, they see enough out of him to give him that right tackle position. If they don't, then I think they'll re-sign McGlinchey and maybe overpay for him if they don't feel like they have an heir apparent. I think Spencer Buford's supposed to be that guy, though.
That's very, very fair. And I tend to agree kind of with what you're saying. I actually think the initial knee-jerk reaction is say, if this guy plays at a Pro Bowl or all-pro level. And I saw Golden Fang actually say this in the chat, so shout out to you, my man. But I actually think that bodes against him coming back. I think the 49ers are more willing, if he kind of has a mediocre season and he's cheap, they bring him back to compete with a Buford or whatever for a starting job on this team. If he plays really well, I think he prices himself off the team because of the same things that you just talked about. Tomlinson was a late replacement to fill in for whoever at the Pro Bowl, and because of that, he priced himself out of being on the 49ers, I believe. I think McGlinchey could do the same thing by playing at that level, and so they continue to stock, like you said, all of these players on the offensive line. They're really deep there, a lot of young guys. I think that McGlinchey playing well actually prices himself out of the 49ers. If he kind of stays mediocre and they can get him for kind of cheap, I think he has more of a chance to come back. So interesting take there. Yeah.
Eric is correcting us. I guess is Spencer Burford, not
Burford.
Spencer
You're
Buford.
right. You're right. It is. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. You guys always got us on the chat. Swan Song says $2. All right. Have at it, man. Because I'm not even going to play the other one at this point. I mean, I feel like it's a slap in the face if we go the other route. So
that one was for you, Swan Song.
There's your $2. Now you better have subscribed to his channel, which by the way is pinned at the top of the chat. Steeler Nation, shout out to Steeler Nation, by the way. This guy's always in the chat pretty frequently. Clearly a Steeler fan, has no reason to be here, but he's here quite a bit. He says, what do you believe is a more of a possibility? Seattle winning 7 games or Kyler taking the Cardinals to a Super Bowl? Ooh. Man, I'll say for me, I'd say Seattle winning 7 games.
Same here, because I think there's a 1% chance Arizona makes it to the Super Bowl.
That's fair. And it's actually not hate on Kyler. I think Kyler's pretty good. There's certainly something missing there mentally, right?
And I
But
mean, they just they're that team is
the team,
going
that's
through a lot
exactly
right
what it
now.
is. The team, yes, I agree.
Well, I mean,
Completely agree with that.
they just had a big death in that community.
Yeah.
So
Rest in
I
peace,
think,
man.
yeah, rest in peace to him. Tough to see a young kid. I mean, that's two, right? Like
Yeah.
Haskins. I mean, it's kind of, these are all young guys that are going up. Don't want to bring down the energy here, but sad to see. And I just think the Cardinals are going to be dealing with a lot. Hopkins isn't going to be their first half of the season. Now they have to deal with this. Obviously the tumultuous offseason with Kyler Murray and his contract situation. I just think there's too much going on there. Plus they lost, some big pieces on the defense as well. So
Yeah, that's a really good point. Now, if you said Seattle 10 games, I think I would go towards the Cardinals on that. I just think that there's like zero shot that Seattle's really, really awful. I mean,
you don't have
arguably
faith
the
in Drew
worst
Lock?
roster. No,
You don't have faith in Geno?
no. Why would I
Okay.
ever have faith in either of those guys? 10 games, I'm taking the Cardinals on that bet to go to the Super Bowl. That's just me. There's a breaking point to this whole thing, is all I'm saying. All right, let's get into the final topic. So we talked about the three best players. We talked about the three most important players. Let's talk about a wild card player on this team. Now, when I say wild card, I look at this player as they don't need him to contribute to be a difference maker for this team to go far. But if this player does surprise you and plays really, really well, it bodes well for the 49ers to make a deep run. Who's that one player for you that you look at as the wild card for this team?
So this is going to be, I kind of want you to go first. Okay, I'll go first. All right.
Yeah, here's the reason I want you to go first. Because I have two names that I'm back and forth on, and so I don't want to just say one and then all of a sudden that was who you were going to say, and then
okay, I guarantee you who I'm going to say is not on your list. I do like who Tom Bragg. I do like who Tom Bragg brought up because I think that's an important. That's one. But mine. So this is where I'm coming from. Last year, I think the defensive line brought out some studs. A guy like Arden Key came in and had a lot of success. A guy like DJ Jones had a lot of success and really helped out the team alongside with Bosa, Armstead, and whoever else was on the outside. We lost Arden Key, we lost DJ Jones. Obviously, Kinlaw's there, but he's not the guy that I think. I actually think it's a guy that may not even have a big role on the team, but he's my wild card. That's Jordan Willis. Oh. So why I think Jordan Willis is the guy. We've seen his ability to turn around a game in special teams, right? Against Green Bay, he was the savior. He was the guy who blocked the punt. He was also a guy who cleared out the way for Jimmy Ward to come in and block the field goal. That pretty much turned around that game. Jordan Willis is somebody who we only got to see half of the season because he was suspended for the first 7 games. In the short amount of time that we saw and the short amount of snaps that he was able to play, he was highly productive, right? He had 3 sacks and something like close to 200, 300 snaps. If you were able to double that, right, you're going to get a much more production. He's in a 1-year deal, so he is going to be auditioning for his next contract. He's athletic. He's humble. He appreciates the opportunity that he has here. A full year with Costrick, a full year engrossed in this. I think he's going to be somebody who's 7 to 8 sacks, 6 to 8 sacks this season, and be that Arden Key type influence that we had last season. So that's who I think. I think he's going to be somebody who prices himself out from coming back to the 49ers next season. I just really, really enjoy that guy, and I think he's going to have a big role in this defense.
Wow. Holy moly. That was a wild card. I absolutely love it. He was not on my list. I'll tell you who my second guy was. It was Verrett. Now, Verrett was a guy that I said last year was the most important player for the 49ers because I figured his injury, if it happened, and unfortunately it did, would take away what the 49ers wanted to do, which was running a lot of cover one. A lot like we talked about earlier in the show of why you have Ward and why I have the other Ward
Mhm.
as our guys that are very important to this team, because it allows them to run cover one. Last year, that guy was Verrett, but this year, Verrett is a guy that they signed super duper cheap. Hell of a player. We're talking about a top 15 corner when healthy. And so if he's healthy and can compete and be a player possibly opposite of a Travarius Ward or just depth on this team, I think that could be massive for this team. So Verrett's one. Number two, and a couple people said this in the chat early on, Danny Gray. Now, Gray is not a guy at all that I'm counting on this season. I think wide receivers specifically do take multiple years to develop outside of the few that just come in right away and tear it up. And I think he has some things that he can work on for sure. But that third wide receiver spot, as much as I like Jennings, is wide open, right? And Danny Gray may not be able to come in right away and make an immediate impact. But as he grows throughout the season, if he can start taking some of those snaps, whether it's in the slot or the outside, and help take that top off the defense so that everything can work underneath, I imagine that helps guys like Debo and Kittle and even Ayuk and Jennings really make a living over the middle, and really helps Trey Lance, by the way. If the top is taken off the defense, you can run play action and take a shot or two every game, and Danny Gray's that guy. Well, every time he's on the field, it opens up the middle of the defense, which is a hard place to live in the NFL, evidenced by Jimmy Garoppolo, who that's where he makes most of his living, but unfortunately throws a lot of passes that you're like, oh gosh, why'd you do that? Because it's tough to live there. It really is. That's where most of the players are on the field. So for me, that guy is Danny Gray, but I love the answer in Willis. I did not expect that at all. I even saw some people say Robbie Gould, a few other names that were out there. Some really, really good chatter going on in the chat. You guys are fantastic.
Yeah, I'm a big Jordan Willis fan. I think we've only touched the surface with him. Charles Omenihu is another guy that I think can have a big year this season as well. But I'm gonna go with Jordan Willis just because he has that ability in special teams as well as on the defensive line. I think he's gonna make some big plays, make some very impactful plays at times of need, and I expect him to make big money on somebody else's team next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, some of these defensive linemen are going to get paid because of what the 49ers do. They produce somebody every year that gets overpaid, right? And maybe he's that guy going in to this year. It's tough because I just don't know which linemen are going to make the team and which ones aren't. They're like 15 deep right now, and I could make a case for every single one of them. I could see Ebicom. I mean, you look at a guy that could make the ultimate difference for this team. Ebicom's one of those guys, right? And we're talking about a guy that had, I believe, 3.5 sacks in his final 5 games, really came on strong. He could make a major difference, but I could also see him getting cut because they want to save, $6.5 million or whatever it is. So
and they have guys behind them that could perform as well, right? So it's not just because they want to save; it's because there's guys there that are all around the same level. You really have to separate yourself to really be safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And Gammon comes in with a really, really good comment. He says the wild card is just the special teams in general. That's totally fair, right?
Yeah.
If we're going unit, I love that. The special teams went from being a weakness to winning the 49ers a game in the divisional round of the playoffs. And this year they've put a lot of money and a lot of assets into getting players for the special teams. Yeah, I think the special teams as a whole is completely a wild card. So I think those are all great comments. Well, Suneil, little over an hour. Good way to bring it back. Again, Suneil's channel is pinned to the top of the chat. If you have not subscribed, please do so. I don't know what's going on in the chat. Kevin, I appreciate you being here, man. I don't know what's going on over there. Looks like you and Tommy are having a little bit of a back and forth. Chill out, guys. It's all love. We're all 49er fans. Appreciate the heck out of each and every one of you. If you have not subscribed, please make sure that you do so. Make sure you hit that bell notification so you never miss an episode. And if you want more 49ers or Lions content, You can also join the channel, become a member, get that extra content coming to you each and every week. But you got to be a TD member, not a field goal member. Just a reminder to y'all. But thank y'all for tapping in. Thank y'all for making the show jump as you always do. I will be back tomorrow. Suneil, thank you so much for joining me as always. Brian J., listen, you were in Grant's chat earlier. I thought you were going to come in and roast me a little bit. Appreciate you for tapping in, man. Everybody, have a blessed night. Peace.